your thoughts where any of our top 4 making it would be pretty impressive, I think, for give Europe an impressive chance at the World Championship. But we will see who starts it off here. Well, Thijs and Casie is coming right up. Sorry for the slight delay. Thijs probably had to make a few brews, and he might be a little bit slower than normal. So I think that's fair. We can give him the extra few minutes he needs. Obviously, he's still probably, or definitely not feeling 100%. We are going to get into it right now. Game number 1. Thijs on the top on that Demon Hunter. Casie on the bottom on the Tempo Mage. Sol, take me through the mulligans.
Well, first off, I would just say hopefully Thijs is laying off the tee at least temporarily and focusing just purely on the water for now. I think that's probably a good start at this point. But yeah, mulligan-wise, I think the Cram Session is definitely appealing, but it's a much harder sell as a keep when you don't have any of the spell damage minions in your opening hand. So I would personally favor keeping it. Casey's going a completely different way with the one-keep Shenvala instead, which is extremely interesting to me. Mulligan strategies against Demon Hunter has been one of the hotly debated topics throughout multiple regions, with APAC casters, APAC players, Europe casters, Europe players, America's casters, America's players, all kind of having different stances on what the cards are, what the curves are that you're looking for in this matchup. And one keep Shenvala, I think, is yet another development to the story here from Casie.
I think one thing for me is that I can say is Shenvala doesn't really die versus Demon Hunter, does it? Unless they have the 1-2-3 curve or something, then like Shenvala, you don't really deal 5 that well. So I don't know if I like it, but I think I understand it as if he just drops it down on curve or maybe even earlier and tries to fight for board from a very early point. You can see it potentially pay off.
So I have tried this before, and here's my experience with it. So if you just keep Shenvala, you are slightly less aggressive in the opener on average, right? So you might just even fall behind to like a 1-2 curve from the Demon Hunter on the other side. And then you play Shenvala, and yeah, maybe it does stick because, you know, you can beat their Marrow Slicer and that kind of stuff. But do you have the cards to pay it off in one turn after that? Do you just play a 2-5 that dies over the course of 2 turns? And is that necessarily good enough to be able to give you a platform in the matchup? I think it's interesting.
Yeah, it's really tough, isn't it? For now, though, we are going to see Casie just get a few minions out for himself, currently leading on board. And Thijs does have his Panthara with the hero power. We can draw, kill off this spell damage minion. Seems pretty positive the way I'm looking at it. There's a very flurry of options for turn 4, but none of them feel fantastic versus specifically an early minion mage right now.
Yeah, agreed. Just get these Pantharas down, start chipping away. Spell damage, certainly the premium minion to eliminate here, I would imagine, from Thijs' perspective.
And Soulshare I-Beam definitely isn't bad. Actually, just as spot removal. This early push from Casie.
Yeah, that I-Beam's going to get a bit awkward though, isn't it? It's depending on what the next draw is, whether it's going to be castable or not this game. That ain't it, Chief. Although, it does provide a pretty useful replacement for the I-Beam. Now just Soulshare Chaos Strike is honestly a pretty powerful turn here as well. But there might be just some merit in getting the Marrow Slicer loaded up, even though it's a little bit more inefficient overall in terms of damage.
And that's it, right? You can just right now see what's required to kill a Shenvala, and you see that it does at least slow Thijs down here. He doesn't get the Marrow Slicer equipped. We can see that he's probably okay with being slow because his hand isn't great. But
sure.
Yeah, if it dodges in play, or if he had to play Marrow Slicer anyway and dump in the Mana Feeder too, that's it. It's a win, I would say, for Casie. Here comes the spells and the Cyclone, though.
Casie playing the lot. Nothing else going on in his hand, so he's going to need some gas here.
Mirror Image would be insane.
Yup. Arcane Intellect and Evocation. That qualifies as gas, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, he didn't go again with 1 mana. I thought that was worth considering.
Just rip the Evo again.
Yeah, he has Arcane to draw cards. He's getting towards Deep Freeze anyway. He had 1 mana leeway, so even a 2-cost spell would be playable. I thought it was worthwhile.
Just wants a playable here that's not Philosophy. Oh, that's actually kind of bad as well. I think Thijs wanted to work that I-beam over to the right-hand side of his hand this turn, right? So obviously the Philosophy would have duplicated the Spirit Jailer, which would have punished him, but also the Consume Magic here, drawing a card, can potentially punish him as well. But I guess worst case scenario, he does just get to silence the Sorcerer's Apprentice anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. That was very interesting as well, I think. Like, couldn't he have just I-beamed it for 3 mana and been okay with it? Kills the Apprentice. Heals up a bit, leaves a 2/2. If he whiffed on that, he couldn't even kill the Apprentice that turn.
He also could have just Marrow Sliced and killed it. He could have Marrow Sliced 2 turns ago and killed the Shambhala. There's a lot of different ways that these last couple of turns could have been played out from Thijs.
Counterspell there just in time for a Skull turn, and honestly, I think there's a fair read from Casie that Thijs could well have a Skull here, because that Marrow Slicer could be won quite easily.
It's true, yeah. It's a good pickup, though.
He's got to wait, right?
Wait for the Magtheridon?
I think so. He's one turn away. I think it's fine to just hold off here.
Agreed.
Because, yes, Mage can freeze it. Yes, they can devolve in missiles. But if they don't, you probably just win the game. So I think it's worthwhile. There's some minions the Shard Shatter clears up anyway. You've just shuffled a ton of soul fragments in. Yeah, I like this.
Completely agree. Casie is fearful of the Sociologist more than anything right now, just based on how many soul fragments he saw get loaded up into Thijs' deck there. I think he winced when he saw those final 2 fragments come down. I think he is expecting the big 7 mana play on the following turn, and it is a big 7 mana play that he's going to get met with, but perhaps not the one he was expecting.
I think he might prefer Militia. He does have the Flame Horde as an answer.
Big call from Casie to hold on to the Mana Giant here. Plays around both of those eventualities, the Sociologist and the Magtheridon Shard Shatter.
Demons? Demons.
The problem is, I'm sure arguments could be made to not do it this turn for Thijs. But it does make the rest of his turn look a little bit more rubbish, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
And I'm a fan of just playing the game where, okay, yeah, you don't get to kill giants, you don't get to kill a big Conjurer's turn or anything like that, but you have a 12/12 on an empty board.
Time grows short. I grow impatient.
And also with Kayn, he can actually check for Vaporize as well, post Magtheridon.
I will still find you.
And check for the face secrets right now. He's now got the knowledge that it is something spell-based, having not yet cast a spell. It is, of course, counterspell, but could still be Spellbender and or Netherwind Portal. Now Casey's going to take that opportunity to go in, has the turns, the mana to look for a Conjurer's Calling here, potentially, to diversify his threats, but having not hit it immediately, he's just going to go digging. The Arcane Intellect. Oh, Devolving Missiles is huge.
I thought he was going to play it.
Frostbolt. He is going to play it. Yikes! Oh...
That's huge. He just gets to kill a giant now with the Magtheridon.
He does.
And he knows the secret isn't going to interrupt it.
Yes, he has tested everything that is relevant for the Magtheridon coming down, but Casie delaying his push for 1 turn has delayed this counter push from Thijs for 1 turn, which now unlocks Deep Freeze mana for Casie in response. And I think that nod coming out there from Casie means that he understood the situation here. He knew that this was a possibility. And now just that 1 turn of stalling that he managed to squeeze out here means that this is an answerable board state.
Yeah, Deep Freeze and then Vaporize the turn after to add that extra level of safety as well.
Is he going to go Frostbolt instead? he's looking for? Try and find an evocation turn?
What to do?
Well,
What to
It has to be deep freeze. It just has to be deep freeze.
Right.
What do you mean? I just summoned 2 elementals. Oh, consume magic again is enormous.
It would be even bigger if it could be targeted for your own minion.
Eye beam for the counterspell. Consume magic removes one of the freeze effects. Oh! And rips the sociologist off the top, Raven!
That, I don't think, could have gone any better for one singular draw. I guess. I guess Skull, could have been good if the outcomes from Skull were good, of course. But that is just insane. Cleans up the elementals, no problem. Protects the Magtheridon being forever frozen. Of course, we can see a Frostbolt. That is kind of beside the point right now.
Was it worth Wind Furying those last trades into the 3-6? I'm not so sure about that. Obviously, it was already silenced, so it couldn't freeze the 12-12, right? So it feels like Thijs might have just taken more damage off his own board here than he necessarily needed to.
I'm not sure, you know. I actually just don't know on that one, because it does just make the board have to be... It has to, like, Casie has to do something with nothing, right? He has no starting point. So maybe that would have changed, but maybe it wouldn't. It can hit the militia for AoE and kill it off.
My argument is that you didn't, instead of starting from 0, you actually did some of Casey's work for him by clearing 2 of your own minions.
Maybe he wanted to just protect the militia with the higher health from AoE.
Yeah, I could see that.
Still, though, this Magtheridon is frozen, so cannot attack yet, of course. And,
Poor warlock.
Militia into Skull.
Insane, right? Consume magic into militia into Skull.
Yeah, okay,
don't forget. Because that consume magic was huge. Because now, because of this Magtheridon, that was a deep freeze that didn't go face. It was a Frostbolt that didn't go face. But this Raven is a ton of damage that is going to go face.
It's just lethal, right?
2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12.
Oh,
yes!
Insane. It looked like the Magtheridon could have been punished. And you can argue it was punished. The delay. It was frozen 2 turns in the row. It didn't get to swing. But Casie, with that nod, is like, yeah, okay. The consume magic into militia, into Skull, into 3 cards to give Thijs exact lethal this turn. That is not how you want to lose a game of Hearthstone. But Thijs is going to go 1-0 up here. And what an ending, at least, to that game. Wow.
Yeah, really, really clean. A lot of respect for the way that Casie navigated through those mid-game turns. Again, with the speed that Casie plays, it's sometimes hard to, evaluate everything that's going on.
Right.
But, what's very apparent is that he does process all of these situations. So when suddenly, obviously, Devolving Missiles was picked up, right? And we're like, oh, sick, Devolving Missiles. He threw it away really quickly, and we're like, wait, he doesn't have Devolving Missiles anymore. That could be sick. But he knew he had that set up with the Deep Freeze to deal with the Magtheridon anyway, so he was happy to just throw that away to deal with the damage from the Cane that was on board. These are all things that he had planned out, and that one extra turn of stalling that he found to be able to line that Deep Freeze up was pretty effective. But in the end, it was just a brutal back-to-back-to-back draw from Thijs on the top there, just able to send a huge beatdown.
Yeah, you just can't really recover from something like that, especially with its double twin slice involved, of course. But that was just game number 1. We're going to go to a quick break while we set up for game number 2. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
What useless facts do I know? Oh man, I have plethoras of useless facts.
Useless facts.
I know pi to the 50th digit. To the 50th digit? Yeah. Well, probably more than that, actually.
We're in Texas right now. The Texas state motto is friendship. That's a useless fact.
3.14159265358979323.
Maybe it's not a useless fact, but I know how to cut almost every single fruit.
4626433832799502.
Well, there's no correct answer to that. If I give you a useless fact, it would then be useful for this interview.
Do you know a fact off the top of your head?
Okay. Jaguars have a particularly powerful bite force, and what they will often do is crush the skulls of their victims. They will just bite right through the skull, and boom, lights out.
884-197-169-3937-5105. It's like 60 digits, I think, or something. That's more than impressive.
Welcome back, everyone. We are in our semi-final number 1 of the day here in the European Hearthstone Grandmasters, and we've just seen Thijs take a victory over Casie in a very close game with the help of some draws off the top there with his Demon Hunter. Does mean he is going to be leading now and going into his game number 2, whereas Casie still has all the work to do. But I think both players actually managed that game quite well, considering how tricky some of the situations were, especially involving that Magtheridon.
Yeah, we were just during the break having a little debate in our Discord about some of the potential endgame lines there from Casie and whether he could have got super greedy and like frostbolted the face still and then gone digging with some of the evocations and other resources in his hand to find Ray of Frost or some other answer for the Magtheridon, which, as Abar pointed out, could have potentially then protected his apprentice, which might have made all the difference on a following turn. So there's certainly some different paths that could have been taken, but yeah, overall I think the power of the draws back to back from Thijs was going to be hard to beat from basically any line of play there in Casie.
Yeah, and we see the hidden special devolving missiles costing 1 null mana. I don't know what's going on with that one, but
so weird.
Yeah, we are going to be stepping into a Mage Mirror Sottle, so I guess this is the spice sprinkled across many of the matchups and series we've had today in Hearthstone Grandmasters.
Yeah, Casie queuing right back up on this mage, and pretty similar mulligans with one key difference, and that is that Thijs, through sheer power of will, has managed to mulligan into the coin, which is an enormous deal in this matchup.
Yeah, what's going to make the slight joke is like one has 4 cards and one does not.
Yes.
But yeah, really decent openings here. But again, Casie does need something to tie that hand together. Very reminiscent of Warmer's hand in a game from the previous series. Because he has all the minions that all work together very nicely, but no spells to get him cooking. Whereas Thijs not only has the lab partner on curve with the One Maker, but now the Cram Session as well to start digging. Along with that coin, is going to make the Cyclone turn at worst decent.
Disgusting opening here from Thijs with that Cram Session potential now on the follow-up. Casie looking like he might just have to be a Tempo Shambhala gamer again. He absolutely is. He needs to just fight from board, make sure he's not going to get run over by these small minions early on. Does have that Firebrand to fall back on. That was a potential possibility he could have gone for. But now the insanity can come out already for Thijs. Sorcerer's Apprentice, Ray of Frost, Arcane Breath, Coin, and the Mana Cyclone. all available this turn.
Yeah, that's one of the problems, isn't it, with Shambhala is that the play makes sense, you need something on the board, but then that just activates a certain amount of cards for Thijs there and allowed him to get away with this turn, and this is absolutely huge. As you said, though, Firebrand, Ray of Frost, or, like we're probably going to see here, is Apprentice, Ray of Frost go with Cyclone. Primordial, so he's definitely going to help out with that.
Yeah, it does mean he can at least counterpunch the Apprentice, which is huge. I think especially after those mirror images got added to the board. Firebrand just wasn't a realistic prospect anymore. Alright, Spell Damage Arcane Explosion now available for Casie. That's a really nice board swing on the following turn now. Spell Damage Cone of Cold push right now from Thijs honestly doesn't look that bad here either, but Cone of Cold is a very useful resource in terms of just actually being a board freeze in the late game.
Yeah, I was actually just looking at what if Thijs just cashes in this cram session right now, right? He just draws cards, he has a ping available so he can clear off the 2 minions on the board, regardless of what 2 cards are drawn, obviously. I like it. I like staying as high on resources as possible in this matchup. Looks like he's going to go for a Wand Maker. So we're going to potentially see, what do you think, a double trade here? Or do you think just the respect into the Sorcerer's Apprentice, just killing that off and letting Casie have his Cyclone on board?
I think personally I'd rather see the Frostbolt used here just to preserve another minion in hand, because that's what the hand is lacking right now, is just things to play on a neutral board state. He has plenty of freezes with Ray of Frost and Cone of Cold in his hand, so I don't really see the merit in holding onto a Frostbolt there as well. And it is going to work out better for Thijs in this scenario as well, because obviously we know playing another minion there would have just increased the blowout of this swing turn from the Arcane Explosion.
That is the breathing room that Casie needed here. Azure Explorer, fantastic pickup. Obviously not for this turn, but just to be able to keep his resources high as well. Thijs now has Giant with Conjurer's Calling in hand. Can't obviously do it quite yet, but he's close.
So he wants to... If he just casts AI, it's playable next turn with the Conjurer's Calling, because I believe that AI was generated from the Mana Cyclone.
I also believe that is true. And at worst, you can just ping the Thanos.
Right. If he gets a playable off the Wand Maker, like just Magic Trick, Tome of Intellect, like something that's just vanilla good this turn, that's the other option. You go Wand Maker, 1 mana spell, ping the Blood Mage Thanos. I guess it wasn't. I guess that was a natural copy, right?
It must have been actually, yeah, because it didn't go down. It was 3 at the start, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
A slight issue here as well, because I don't think there's a good read that Thijs has that the Raz isn't in hand.
Sure.
Because Casie couldn't have done the spell damage Raz turn last turn regardless. So maybe he's a little bit scared of playing a minion into just a Raz and then carry on there. So I don't mind the ping.
Yeah, I think if that was the case, that the Arcane Intellect was his natural one, then I would have liked to have gone with the One Thief line instead. Just try to hit a generated spell that he could have just played, like Tome of Intellect or Magic Trick that turn, and then just use the ping as well with that 3 mana to deal with the Blood Mage Thanos. I think I was always going to ping the Blood Mage that turn, but I just really wanted to discount my Mana Giant by 1 that turn.
And now this is the fear, isn't it? And this is, I think, a very tough decision. We can see, of course, that Thijs could go with a 2-turn kill plan on the Giant, but the second this Conjurer's Call in for your opponent, you've blown so much damage, it might be just too much of a punish. It looks like Thijs is going to go for the freeze into his own Giant and say, actually, Casie, you're going to have to kill mine first.
Casie draws Ray of Frost and says, no, you!
Or he could just kill it, right?
Ow.
I wonder.
Okay, could he likely kill it? Does, like, Firebrand Ray with them Arcane Missiles as well get the job done a lot of the time?
So the Ray of Frost would deal 4 damage, Firebrand would deal 4 damage, and then the Arcane Missiles fit in there as well. Yeah, it clears a very large percentage of the time, I would say, yeah.
Yeah, I guess the issue is it doesn't clear all of the time, in which that's when you start to be a little bit afraid.
Right.
Did go for the Azure Explorer, though.
You fight me, you get burned.
No, wait, I was counting that as if the Zero Explorer was in there as well, which obviously you can't fit everything in.
Right,
So
right.
it's actually
So
not
it is
very
risky,
likely
it's
clear if
risky,
you don't
yeah.
have the spell damage, yeah.
Cone of Cold. They're just gonna freeze the Giants till the end of the game. Nothing really good to get that Raz down for.
Alright, I think it's just
Ooh.
Conjurer's Calling, and then the Ray of Frost again.
Quick, Thijs, empty your hand.
This is kind of a yikes.
Isn't
There's downside to everything here, because if he plays Violet Spellwing, obviously that's just another card that goes back into his hand, so it's another card that he doesn't draw off the Octosari. But if he plays the Solarian before he draws all the Octosari cards, there's then a decent chance he just burns the Prime, by the Prime being shuffled back in and then so many cards getting drawn. Nothing was actually particularly clean with that Octosari.
And look at this Flame Strike as well. It's going to do so much damage on this board. Look at that. And he just gets it with the missiles. I mean, he did have a lot of the missiles as well. But that's still huge. He gets to retain as much of his board as possible. This Giant is still there. And Thijs draws 1 million cards. Normally, something powerful, but maybe a little bit too powerful here.
Ooh, I was
Mana
just
Giant
about to say,
Apprentice.
not the worst burns. Obviously, the Apprentice hurts, but you can get on without it. But losing the second Mana Giant is a very, very big deal. Perhaps crucially, though, the Prime is still in there in those last 7 cards.
Yeah, and this might actually have to be one of those multi-turn setups here. Firebrand, Cone of Cold, potentially, to set up for a Raz follow-up, maybe, to clean up some extra damage. It's really tough to actually break down this hand from Thijs and work out exactly the best way you can go to clear this board.
I think I want to devolve first, if that's going to be the line. You need maximum opportunities to deal with the Sorcerer's Apprentice, right? So you could either hit it with the Devolving Missiles first, or you can hit it with one shot from the Firebrand. But the problem is then you Cone of Cold to the left, which means you're not Cone of Colding the Giant. Like, it's just ever so slightly ugly to set up the Cone of Cold turn here. I think Thijs is diverting, and I kind of agree with that.
Yeah, well, if the actual placement here is huge when you're considering Cone of Cold, right?
Mm-hmm. Yo, double shot on the Apprentice, leaving the Giant. Insane levels of respect for the Sorcerer's Apprentice here. He's willing to tank the 8.
He's going to go drawing for that Conjurer's Calling, and he is going to get it. Trade into the 5/5, then Conjurers go.
Do you have to trade into the 5/5? I really want to go face this turn.
Now you can't, Sottle. Now you
that's
cannot.
a problem.
Oh. Okay. Pretty mediocre to bad outcomes there, actually.
Yeah.
Did buff the 4/1 though. It's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. I do like this line overall. Like, I think this is largely what I wanted to do with the turn, except obviously the Giant goes face for 8 because it doesn't have to run into a taunt, and then you can just Ray of Frost the 5/5. Like, it just sets up lethal pretty consistently depending on how you roll off the Conjurer's Calling. So Casie did, somewhat get punished by the 2/6 taunt coming out in terms of his ordering, but I think the philosophy behind the turn was correct. We just drop the Ray of Frost here and push for the lethal. Because again, Casie knows the situation, right? He knows the Prime is in one of 2 places right now. Thijs' hand or in those last 6 cards, because he didn't see it get burned off of the massive Octosari draw.
Really big Raz now, though. With the help of Cone of Cold, he deals with the threats at least immediately on board. Second Conjurer's Calling going to come down. Betrug and a Twin Tyrant. Oh, Apexis Blast. Oh, Flame Strike. Or I guess Primordial Studies. They're all good cards. It just depends where Casie sees himself in this game right now.
Yeah. Could certainly see the arguments for all of them. It just depends how you want to lay out the rest of this game, right? Because you could try and do the aggressive thing, which is just Raz right now. You could try and set up the burst damage plan because, you know, Thijs is so close to being out of cards and you are threatening a lot of damage right now. But also you could just pick up the Flame Strike and just try the kill 'em all strat, right? And just exhaust Thijs out of resources completely.
Which the Raz also kind of sets up as well, right? If you look at Raz, if somehow these minions stick from Thijs and Casey's board is dealt with or frozen, then the Flame Strike actually clears this off. Yeah, I'm going for the Primordial Studies though. Potion for another Raz. No spell damage minion available though.
Yeah, double Flame Ward as well is fairly ugly. Has a Pexis Blast, Frostbolt. Pexis Blast is clean on the Flesh Giant. So obviously it then leaves it at the 1 damage breakpoint for the Raz, but from there, where are you going with your turn?
Ugh. These choices are just not that good, are they? for
No.
If he just had one AoE freeze, could start making maybe a counter push himself actually, with the options he had. But he's going to go Conjurers instead here on a 5-drop.
Pray for mercy.
Okay, Cram Session is huge. That at least lets him cycle for the Prime that he's probably going to need this game on the next turn if he does not draw it immediately.
Oh, nice. Spare Arcane Missiles, why not?
That's insane.
Gonna go for Stuart for that extra damage. How much does he have now? He has 10. So he wouldn't quite have enough if Stuart got Fireball.
Yes, you would, right? With the spell damage from the Stuart itself as well. The Fireball would
the
do
spell
7.
damage, yeah. Oh, I'm an idiot. Yeah, I didn't even count the spell. Think of the ping. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
That would just be lethal.
The alternative is just to look at a Arcane Missiles plus Twin Tyrant turn.
Which also seems reasonable. Gets to get the Spellwing down as well.
Mm-hmm.
Time runs out on me.
Depending on where these hit anyway.
I like this. I think he then ripped the missiles as opposed to the Spellwing, right? Just to deal with
just to try and
the
get it.
4-1
Yeah,
reborn.
okay, sure. Yeah. As Casie, I imagine he feels pretty...
Every time.
Every time, yeah.
Every time, dude. Casie cannot play Arcane Missiles to save his life.
Hold on.
I have become one with the void.
Deep breath.
Try to be patient.
Insane.
Insane.
Warriors of the frozen wastes, rise up!
Oh no. Oh no, Raven.
Even the Wormweaver, although obviously not good right now, that's just an insane amount of power.
Mm-hmm.
Wind Fury Harpies, he's going to be able to push 4, or realistically, I guess he kills the Betrug, right?
You just go Font of Power, ping the Betrug.
Sure.
Go face.
Yep. As long as the Betrug dies, that's one of the few ways that there can be some cheeky things happen. Of course, its effect is active whether it's frozen or not. He'll still get a minion to rush if he draws said minion.
Trade game.
Frozen wastes, rise up!
Arcane Amplifier. Right?
Remaining cards in Thijs' deck. 1 Primordial Studies, 1 Magic Trick, Antonidas every time. Yeah, okay. I was looking at deck tray, I didn't actually see what he picked there, but yeah, just 4 cards left, 2 of them are 1-cost spells. I think I'm always taking Tony there.
Casey's just running short on stuff to do now. No activator, of course, for that Arcane Breath. Ice Barrier will give him some time, but when you're staring at Wind Fury Harpies, Ice Barrier just melts.
It's lethal, right? 8, 16, 23,
15.
28 with the Apexis Blast, 29 even with the spell damage, 30 with the ping.
Yeah, the easy way to look at it, just remove one Wind Fury Harpy and remove the Ice Barrier, right? And then add up everything else. And yeah, that looks like it is more than enough. Pretty much regardless of what this secret was going to be as well. Just because of the damage he has available to him. Wow, just like that. Thijs strides forward to a 2-0 lead versus Casie. Frankly, off the back of that Prime, and there's not a lot Casie could really have done about it. At that point, he was ahead on board. He had all the pressure in the world, but one Prime later, and he's in trouble. That must have been a tough one to take for Casie, honestly.
Yeah, brutal. Certainly, just having things come down to Solarium Prime, Puzzle Box, all that kind of stuff. It's a tough one to take on the chin for any player for sure. And certainly when there's even so many opportunities to dodge that, right? The fact that, as I was talking about, Thijs played out his Astromancer Solarian, which gave him the opportunity. I think he burned 5 cards in the end, and any of those could have been the Solarium Prime because he gave that opportunity for it to be loaded in his deck before he was going to burn those cards. You can argue that the other way around, of course, is he loaded it into his deck on the turn before he was going to draw 4 cards, however many he actually ended up getting to keep in his hand. So there's pluses and minuses to both sides of it, and his only real other alternative was to play a Spellwing on that turn, but it was certainly a very back and forth Mage Mirror until Solarium Prime appeared and then just jumped up and down on the seesaw until it broke, and then it wasn't back and forth anymore and the game was over.
Yeah, it was definitely a tough one there to take, but it does mean we are going to have a focus, of course, on our next game. And it does look like we are going into the... Okay, that's Casey's Rogue. I thought we were going to go the other way. And then I think Casey's on the Mage here, and Thijs is on the Rogue, but we'll have a look once we get into game. Yeah, that's right.
You are correct.
Yeah. Someone's trying to keep me on my toes here, Subtle, because whenever I think it's one matchup, it's another. And then when I'm pretty sure it still shows something else. Here we go, though. Thijs just having his Rogue left to win with, and Casie queuing up the Mage once again.
Double Cult Neophyte opener as well now from Thijs.
I can't hear you, Sol, over the sound of that King Crush being picked.
Sound of that King Crush being picked is raw, Raven.
Oh, it was Vecina.
I mean, yes, obviously it's Vecina. Did you actually want the King Crush, though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't we see a brand taken super early and should kind of have been paid off yesterday?
Yes, but the brand King Crush costs 7, Raven.
So? Still an 8-8 with charge.
Yeah.
Wow, insta-pick there from Casie. Drops down the Astromancer Solarian. Wants some payback from last game, no doubt, with the help of a Prime of his own.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a weird hand, right, from Thijs. He has powerful cards, but no payoff for them quite yet.
Right.
It's more just progression in the game as opposed to game-winning plays here.
Mm-hmm. He's just playing for tempo, playing for aggression. I like this. I also like the timing of the first Neophyte held on the previous turn, but this is the turn where the first real big potential pop-off for the opponent can come down. This is the Apprentice Stuff Coin Cyclone turn that we see so often at this point. So I really like that timing. Thijs can now back it up again with another Neophyte on this turn.
Does he ever want to wait? Yeah. Oh. Does he? I think there is a lot of merit in considering how Neophyte and Quest Adventurer can work together. I'm not sure if that should be planned around too heavily, but I think if you can go for it, you probably should.
Not sure about it personally. I feel like if you think the turn was worth blocking last turn, it continues to be worth blocking this turn. You should just try and stretch it out as far as you can. Try and get as far ahead on board as you can before this potential counter swing can come back at you.
It's tough though, right? Because I'm not even sure Thijs would have done it purposely to only block, but he didn't have anything else to do that last turn.
That's
he played
true.
One, right?
That is true.
He would have daggered and passed, and is that actually just worse?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. I believe the words are, let's go.
This game is look very over, Raven.
Yeah, we thought that last game, Sol.
Okay.
And don't tell me the Rogue can't get a Prime.
I thought that was just going to be 4 missiles to face again, the way that started off for Casie, but he did manage to pick up a couple of clutch minion hits at the end. Like this decision as well from Casie, hold on to the evocation. He has a whole spare Sorcerer's Apprentice right now, and no real promise that the first one on board is getting dealt with the way that Thijs' hand is looking, and it in fact is not this turn. Forget about it. Just play the second apprentice and go. Forget about it. Just do it through the Cult Neophyte. I want to see it so bad. Oh, no. Why did he have to draw the knots? Oh, I've never seen an apprentice evocation turn through a Cult Neophyte before, and I think it might have actually been the play there if he hadn't have drawn the absolute stone cold nuts off the top that turn.
Don't let the door hit.
Casie might want to have a word with you after this match about you complaining about him drawing the good cards. But,
yeah, fair enough.
You can have that conversation later. For now, though, Thijs is on the back foot. Does get arguably something to do for the first time this game with this miscreant. But it might just be a little bit too little, too late.
What a game, Raven. About as clean as it gets. GG, game 4.
Winged Guardian, you got this.
I guess.
That is going to be no true surprise. And I think now, correct me if you disagree, of course, Soto, but I would say the prime last game has now been evened up with the literal best draw combination of draws I think I've ever seen in a mage game from Casie there, combined with Thijs having nothing to do that game. I think we can at least say we're close to even there on the crazy scale.
You could make the argument, yeah. It's like players don't necessarily think like that though, right? Because I think there is a certain expectation of, you know, players build decks with an optimal curve, and in a certain percentage of games you're going to draw that, right? Whereas having something like Puzzle Box or whatever created card by card or Solarian Prime just do whatever the hell it wants and then you lose the game just feels somewhat extra. It just feels outside of that, and it just feels like a tougher beat to take. So certainly I think if you talk to Casie, he will not accept that deal on your behalf. I
think if I was Thijs, I would feel like Casie did whatever the hell he wanted that game as well and won. Okay. So I think it is comparable. So I'm going to stick with that one. But it does mean that Casie does not get 3-0'd, of course. He does get to continue fighting back. And we might be stepping into a rogue mirror here, Sottle. Casie only having rogue and demon until left, of course, means he does have to keep fighting against Thijs' rogue. And now we're going to check out Thijs' rogue. And he is playing that one ambush in there, which is, I guess, the consistent difference we've seen in builds of the list, if that even makes sense as a phrase. It is just whether that ambush has been dipping in and out of players' lists.
Yeah, that's right. He also just plays the one copy of Dragon's Horde to make way for that extra secret, whereas in Casey's version of the deck, he's playing 2. Both players running 1 prep, both players playing Jandis as well, so extremely similar decks with just that one extra secret in Thijs' list just coming out to break the tie.
And that's it, very similar to the game we saw last. But the rogue and the mage do play kind of in similar fashion, where you need the combinations of cards to really have the payoff. We saw it. The neophytes, fantastic versus mage, but then the stunners with no secrets, the neophytes with nothing to actually protect with that effect. Does let it fall down, especially when you compare it to some of the mage games we saw a little bit earlier when we saw players only have minions and no spells to pop off with. So it's funny how these decks are both very similar and very different at the same time. It does look like there's going to be that rogue mirror, and both players playing pretty similar lists. I'm just going to take a quick triple check there for Casie, who is running the standard double Dragon's Horde and the 0 ambush.
You just don't listen to me. I just told you that, Raven. You just don't listen to a word I
was already
say,
looking at something else. That's why. I'm sorry. we get 1 per broadcast. That's fine. I'm sure you don't listen to me way more than the other way around.
I wish I could listen to you much less than I have to, honestly, sometimes, Raven.
See? I do it by accident now and again. Sottle actively tries.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Oh, this is all on the line. A spot in the finals here from Thijs and Casie, the winner. Just get to go through and face the victor of Yala or Psycho for that spot at the World Championship. Thijs only 1 game away. Casie still has a little bit more work to do.
He does indeed. And this is an interesting looking hand. I think this is genuinely one of the hardest decks in the game to mulligan with, because there's so many there's so many different combinations of cards that are powerful in the opening hand, but there's no hard rules on like this card on its own is just always a keep versus this deck, as you can just learn, you know, by rote versus other decks. Like, this is all about combinations, right? It's like, well, you probably don't want to keep Dragon's Horde unless there's something else in your hand to activate, and also vice versa. Do you keep Vendetta if you don't have an activator? Do you keep One Thief if you don't have a curve that's going to combo your One Thief? Like, there's a million questions about how the curves work and how things are going to interact with each other. So I think you saw that where Casie and Thijs actually had fairly similar mulligans there, and Casie threw it away and Thijs kept it just based on one key difference being the activated Vendetta that Thijs had available. And then Thijs just went ahead and activated the Vendetta off his Pharaoh Cat anyway without even needing the Dragon Sword.
Play Dry's going to get prot there, of course, so that's one. Play Dry's down, excuse me, for Casie. Just give him an activator for this One Thief. But it's not a play that Thijs can't manage, right? He already has a way to clear this board if he wants it, just in the form of a dagger. So yeah, I guess based on all the play dries we've seen, this is probably one of the cleaner outcomes for these players, wasn't it? Just, okay, I play a minion, you get it, you play the minion. Okay, let's carry on the game.
I think Thijs was particularly happy to allow that exchange that it was plagiarized, since he still has that Vendetta to deal with the situation if he would really need to. Vendetta still costs 0 here, which means Thijs still essentially wins the exchange and dominates the board. But his second Pharaoh Cat, not quite as kind as the first.
Although, as we discussed yesterday, there is a time and a place, even for that card.
Yeah, not a good one, though. I'm saying there's times where it's probably right to play it and still lose, but you still lose.
Hey, look, one way Thijs can get around this is if he plays Generous Mummy into this second plagiarized and he gives Casie the bad card. How about that?
No. Just no. There's so many things wrong with that, Raven. I don't even know where to start. Let's talk about this Hanar turn instead.
Just get offered Noble Sacrifice that he takes. Not really, I would say, the best Paladin Secret in this matchup, but still one that is going to get a use. It's not like eye for an eye that's going to only ever deal 1 damage a lot of the time, right?
Right.
The Noble Sacrifice can get some good use out of it regardless, so not bad. Definitely not great. And at any point, Thijs does just have this secret passage that you can just decide to play the turn with a different hand.
Yep. And Thijs now got the bad news that this is plagiarized yet again on Casey's side, which means he has just given Hanar and Activator over to his opponent. Well, bit of a surplus of Hanars now on Casey's side, but he will move on. The problem Casie has, though, is just dealing with the Hanar on the other side right now.
I wonder.
This game could get
isn't a way, is there?
fairly ludicrously clowny because Casie knows he's dealing with plagiarize. He sees it. It's in his hand. So everything he does here is going straight back into the opponent's hand, and we've seen it before,
no.
Raven.
Oh,
but
no.
Here we go. Plagiarize,
in.
initiate. There's no Colossus of the Moon for you to talk about this time, Raven. You're actually going to have to pay attention. Actually, there's the Generous Mummy. You could just talk about that.
I'm just going to be quiet. I was literally about to say, if anyone who enjoys this loop and wants to cast it, just give me a shout. I will tag out.
It's actually, if I was going to predict, I don't think this will actually go on for too long because Thijs is just in such an insanely advantageous position already.
Right.
He can just end it right now without having to play the plagiarize, which is just kind of insane.
Yeah, not only does he have, I guess, he did it first, so he always ends up that one step ahead, you would argue, generally speaking, of course. He already has a board. He's the one pressuring with damage, right? He can kill this Hanar, because he also knows he's facing down only the Rogue Secret, which means if he wanted to, he could kill the Hanar and then slow everything down again. Obviously, we can see Casie has another Hanar in hand, but definitely less powerful, I would say.
My hand is too.
And
It's just all a turn slow, and a burn of a Shadow Step. It's a pretty big deal.
Yep. Once again, sequencing wasn't really a concern there for Thijs because he kind of just had to play the stuff in the order that it was given off the Hanar cycle, but it actually being the Never Surrender being the last card that didn't end up going over to Casie is actually quite nice, since that is one of the most effective secrets.
Wait, he did get Never Surrender.
Oh, he did. Sorry, yeah, you're right.
Yes. You pay attention in this plagiarized loop, please, Sottle?
Yeah. Deserved. Deserved.
Again, though, this is the issue, right? Because Thijs went first, because he already had a bit of a board built up and Casie didn't, if this stays equal, which, again, if we're going to plagiarize loop, it kind of could/does, then Thijs just wins because he's going to deal like 5 damage a turn, right? Like, there's just no real good response there.
Right, but Thijs also in that advantageous position just had the luxury of just saying, nah, don't fancy this anymore, so he's just held back, and now the loop is over for now, at least.
Shadow Step was being considered for, I think, for a second there, but I think there are much higher value targets in Casey's hand alone that Shadow Step's worth with.
Yeah, I think he was just considering what Furious Felfin looked like this turn, but because it's Noble Sacrifice in play, like for example, if he could step the Felfin and then attack into the Hanar and replay the Hanar, he can deal with the Hanar problem right up because he gets the Battle Cry back from the Felfin, but he would need both of those attacks to go off and for none of these to be Noble Sacrifice. Never Surrender again.
Yeah, huge.
Loaded
it's
on
so
up.
Huge. Ugh, less huge. That wasn't a good set of choices, was it?
Freezing Trap is still pretty solid.
Eye for an eye for the reroll.
Ambush again.
Ambush again. Oh.
Yeah, I think freezing is reasonable because I think you're just going to like clean up the board this turn. So, you know, you're potentially freezing the next big minion that your opponent tries to play. I think you have so much control over the board state that freezing trap is never going to be that bad, right? Because you'll be able to pick apart all the small stuff quite nicely.
I never lie, but I never tell the truth.
So, no repentance. There goes Never Surrender number 2.
Look at that Hanar, just a 1/6.
And there's the dirty tricks.
My hand is too full.
Well, at least Casey doesn't have to be worried about plagiarize right now.
Yeah. And freezing trap. Aww. Things I learned, by the way, via Derek Brown earlier, that Dirty Tricks procs at 9 cards, but not at 10. I trust he is telling the truth about that. It's not an interaction that I knew about before today.
I'd love it if it was just a lie.
Yeah, I mean, if it's wrong, I have very clearly blamed him, right? So that's my option select in this scenario. Yeah.
My hand is too full.
Yeah, it's normally the like the hunter secrets and mage secrets, right? That you get those weird interactions with sometimes where they don't go off under certain circumstances.
Still, the Hanar problem persists. Casie did everything he possibly could there. It was a specific combination of secrets. He needed either it be Never Surrender or Redemption so that the Vendetta did not deal with the Hanar. And then obviously had the Speaker Gidra play to follow that up, which he needed then it to be Pack Tactics or Freezing Trap, but that to not deal with the Hanar ended up being a combination of 2 of those secrets, which means Hanar still lives.
I will say, Thijs over the past few weeks has impressed me a lot on both sides of this issue of sort of defragging the secret chains that can happen in these situations, but also in creating them as well. I think it's very easy to go too all in on Hanar or to miss out on value on Hanar as well, either way. And I do think Thijs toes the line pretty well here, and he's doing. This looks like it should be overkill on Hanar, but he is winning and Casie cannot do anything about it right now, so it is working. I just think it's been pretty solid play overall from Thijs.
It has. I do think there's a bit of an issue going on where I'm not sure why all of these plagiarizes and dirty tricks are needed in Thijs' hand right now with the amount of cards that he's ended up being drawing. I would just be trying to take high tempo secrets wherever possible. But obviously he still has the natural copies remaining in his deck as well, which he's going to draw. But his number one issue right now is that he has a lot of other good cards in his deck that aren't just Hanar secret trains that he's never going to be able to draw.
My hand is too full.
Explosive actually not so bad. Obviously couldn't cast it that turn for Casie, but I think going for the secrets that now suddenly look like Flame Ward and Explosive Trap might be the way Casie gets there in some worlds. To at least, I say get there, by get there I mean clear this board that's been there since turn 1 to an extent.
Yikes. Classic 5-mana 3/2. Flame Ward is up. I imagine this turn does end with an attack, but I kind of agree that you can just get one more good turn of value out of your Hanar. Well, never mind. Well, that solved that issue. Might as well attack now.
Yep. Took him a while, but Casie finally killed the Hanar.
Yeah.
Probably the way you least expected. Flame Ward gonna get procced, of course, there, but that still leaves Thijs ahead on board.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that attack happens at the end of the turn anyway, but you might as well have just got the value out of the Hanar while you could and then ended the turn with the attack, right, which I kind of liked. But with the Hanar going down, that just changed the sequencing a little bit. Thijs has kept up with it beautifully. Once again, as you were saying, extremely complicated game state here, and Thijs is staying on top of it very, very nicely.
And yet again, full secrets, Hanar on the board. Casie has to try and deal with it, but the problem is, the longer the game goes on, the more he's just going to die to a dagger swing over the course of a few turns. Honestly, I think if I was Casie there, I would have potentially just bowed out and picked for a farm.
I mean, if we learned one thing over the last couple of weeks, it's that Casie is a Bandersmosh gamer. And that he has extremely high standards of what type of legendary he would like off that card.
At least he knows it's not Never Surrender. That's the positive of playing the Explosive Trap. He knows the damage is going to be... It's not going to just equal out or just plainly add the health on the board. So it's not so bad, but nothing looks good enough. Does he just finish on Edwin and hope? It's probably Repentance as well. 2 Paladin secrets still there.
The Brotherhood shall prevail.
My hand is too full.
It just feels so miserable, right? There's a freaking ambusher on the board right now that your opponent's just able to deal with this with a bare minimum.
Wait, is that the cloak? Oh no, it's not. It's Caladan, right?
It's Caladan, yeah.
I thought it was the cloak. I was like, wait, what? Casey's like, wait, why is he pushing damage with a 2-1 poison when I've got a 10-10 on the board? What's going on? We're about to find out.
You're at 8. That's why. Yep, it's fine. Deal with that.
Yep, get all the secrets procced, and then go.
Datrix now procs after. Interesting demonstration of the phases of play in Hearthstone. The difference between a when and an after on the card.
Too soon.
Come closer and burn.
I mean, was that even really that good? Like, the Caladan pushed 2 damage, I guess, is what it achieved that turn,
That's
essentially.
pretty good.
It is pretty good, yeah, you're not wrong.
If you take percentage of current health, that is rather large, Subtle. So
Yeah.
I like it. Mind Flayer Carj, not quite the power that Casie needs, and it's got nothing, right? The evasive Draconian. Let's even imagine, Subtle, the secrets don't even exist. He's still just dead, right?
Pretty dead, yeah.
Nature speaks through us.
Hydra
Well
just to
played.
proc some secrets. There's the snipe. There's the well played. And I imagine there's the concede. Thijs is going to get into the finals here. Absolutely huge series, huge game. And again, although it looked like Casie couldn't do much all game there, and it looks pretty unfortunate, of course, that was down to Thijs' doing, right? Like, I think Thijs executed that very strange game very, very well. We can talk about some of the small things with secret choices of some of the Rogue Ones specifically, but overall, Thijs just didn't let Casie play a game of Hearthstone, and it wasn't because Casie didn't have cards. It's just Thijs was always that one step ahead. I think that was very, very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way it was perfect. It just can't be. Like that game is nonsense. There's no way you can make every single one of those decisions correct. You know, you're making somewhere in the region of 20 decisions a turn sometimes with some of those secret chains going off, and then, you know, which trades happen where, and whether you're playing any of the other cheap cards that you have in your hand, and what you discover off this and what you discover off that. You're never going to get all of those decisions right over 10 plus turns. But what you can do is avoid disaster. Just don't rope out and miss 4 attacks, or miss spending a bunch of your mana. Don't accidentally burn a bunch of cards from your deck because you've completely overdrawn and miscounted like a plagiarized situation. These are all disasters that we've seen happen from other players in Grandmasters when we've got into very complex situations like that. We saw something quite similar from Bank Yugi in the APAC region, where he got into kind of a disaster turn with his Highlander Rogue when he was so far ahead. So there are these kind of disasters that you can fall into, but as long as you keep a cool head and just navigate and just play solid mechanical Hearthstone through those situations, you're going to come out ahead. And honestly, Thijs has made a career out of doing exactly that. I told the story before when I interviewed him, and he said in 2015, 2016, that's all he felt like he had to do because the rest of the player base just weren't caught up to that level yet. Now things have ascended much, much further beyond, but the game can still create chaos, where that experience of just being able to keep a cool head and just being able to play solid by the books mechanical Hearthstone can be enough to just carry you through. And again, what a ridiculous story this would be if Thijs actually ends up being our World Championship qualifier here. Fresh out of the hospital bed and into the World Championships would be